everyone, thanks for joining me today for this video where I'll be discussing my thoughts on the debate between Just Some Guy and Nick Rekieta and the free market capitalism versus communism debate. So I found this topic to be very fascinating, and I saw Nick Rekieta do a live stream last night of Just Some Guy's video argument to the debate that happened on Flashcast, and it was a really good live stream, and I highly recommend you guys check out Nick Rekieta's breakdown of that video. So I'll be linking that and Just Some Guy's video down below in the description, so make sure you check it out. But just to give you a lowdown of what the debate was about, it was about these two brothers, Matt and Noah Colvin from Tennessee, who went out and bought over 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizers before the pandemic and wanted to sell it out of their eBay stores, eBay and like Amazon stores, with over 30 times markup before the government of Tennessee declared a state of emergency. But they were unable to sell their stuff on Amazon and eBay because Amazon and eBay shut them down, citing their terms of service. And much later on, the government of Tennessee decided to press charges based on the price gouge. And in order to avoid prosecution, the brothers ended up basically donating, quote unquote, donating their stock to charity. And 1/3 of that the government kept for themselves.
And a reminder that 1/3 of the stuff that he was forced to donate under threat of law, under threat of the bullet from the government, was given to the government, not to charity.
Apparently, he donated 2/3 of it to a local church and the rest of it to the state of Tennessee, who split it with Kentucky.
Let's just remind people what that donation was. It's in the articles. I don't know if Just Some Guy explored the articles fully, but that donation was a criminal settlement, a settlement to avoid criminal charges, which means that free will donation that he made was motivated by the government's guns pointing directly at him. Because what happens when you have a criminal charge and you refuse to comply? I'm sorry, the government points its guns at you. This was not a donation. This was a confiscation in exchange for a protection from criminal prosecution. It was donation at gunpoint.
The argument being made here is whether it was moral or ethical for the Colvin brothers to buy all of these things and sell it at 30 times the cost. Which, in my view, I agree with Nick Rekieta in that I think that they had every right to do this. It may not necessarily seem like the right thing to do, but I think that right and wrong are arbitrary definitions that we put on complex issues to make it easier for ourselves to define our own moral standing. But there is really no difference between what these men did and what the government and corporations do on a daily basis, including big pharma, who price gouge things like insulin or the vaccine or any form of medicine. The crux of the matter here for me is the precedent set by the Tennessee government in confiscating these men's property. That to me is a communistic totalitarian move, and how the ramifications of such an act can extend to other moral and ethical situations going on right now. And this is where things get interesting because today this article dropped. So the headline reads, Florida and Texas fume as Biden seizes and rations supply of life-saving COVID treatment. 7 southern U.S. states, mostly led by Republican governors, say they are now facing shortages of monoclonal antibody treatments for COVID-19 after the federal government took over the distribution, citing the need for equity. Notice that word equity. Monoclonal antibodies, MAB, are lab-created proteins that help those already infected deal with the virus. They have been intensively deployed in Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas, states dealing with a recent surge of Delta variant cases. With the exception of Louisiana, they are all run by Republicans. So here we have a situation where the red states are being punished by the government to fall in line with the vaccine mandates. Is this a moral or ethical act by the federal government? I would say absolutely not under the free marketed democracy and as I understand it and what ethics and morality are. But under a totalitarian system of government, this would be morally ethical. The article goes on. On Wednesday, the Biden administration announced it would take over the distribution of these treatments using the Defense Production Act and would be centralizing them under the Department of Health and Human Services. Remember the word centralizing. An HHS spokesperson said this was being done to avoid shortages as the 7 states account for 70% of all orders. Given this reality, we must work to ensure our supply of these life-saving therapies remain available for all the states and territories, not just some, the spokesperson told CNN. HHS will determine the amount of product each state and territory receives on a weekly basis. State and territorial health departments will subsequently identify sites that will receive product and how much, the spokesperson said. This system will help maintain equitable distribution both geographically and temporally across the country, providing states and territories with consistent, fairly distributed supply over the coming weeks. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican who has clashed with President Joe Biden on COVID policies from mask mandates to compulsory vaccinations, said that the move has resulted in cutting the supply to his state by more than 50%. The federal government has allocated fewer than 31,000 doses to Florida this week, while the average need for the hospital states clinics is 72,000, his office said. DeSantis said on Thursday that he has reached out to GlaxoSmithKline, another pharmaceutical company, to purchase their MAB treatment in order to make up for the shortfall. In Texas, the Biden administration told the state to reduce its use of the therapeutic treatment that has literally been saving lives and reducing hospitalizations. Mark Keogh, a judge in charge of the Montgomery County, just north of Houston, said in a Facebook post on Tuesday, the manufacturer has confirmed supplies are ample. They're ample. But due to the Defense Production Act, the White House and its agencies are the only entities who can purchase and distribute this treatment, Keogh added. So less than a week after the president tells us that his patience is wearing thin and he is mandating vaccines to millions of Americans, his administration limits and all but removes a non-controversial and highly successful treatment from our war chest of combating the virus, he said. So here we have a situation where the manufacturer has confirmed that there are ample supplies, but the government has taken it upon themselves to, under the Defense of Production Act, to be the sole entities who can purchase and distribute treatment. In what world, other than the world where totalitarian moralism drives the government, would this be considered ethical? With the Colvin brothers, we couldn't really attribute motive to what they did as immoral because they didn't intend to harm anyone. In this case, this is way worse than what the Colvin brothers did because the government here has motive to harm the red states' governors and its people by withholding purchasing and distribution of a drug that's been working and is helping the people. This is 100% a totalitarian, communistic move by the federal government to strong arm the red states to fall in line with the vaccine mandates. One DeSantis aide said that the HHS hasn't adequately explained its move or given a warning. They had a vague statement about equity, but sorry, that doesn't cut it, the aide told Real Clear Politics. No explanation of how these allocations were determined, no explanation of why it's only Florida and a few other red states being restricted, no warning. How is it equitable to only send treatment for half the Floridians who need it, and no states in Alabama? DeSantis press secretary Christina Pushaw asked on Twitter. She also pointed out that just weeks ago, Democrats and their allies in the corporate press were claiming that MAB treatments were a scam to enrich DeSantis's donor prompting a war of words, but have now suddenly pivoted to claim that Florida is using too many doses. Some pundits are going as far as to speculate that the move is part of a civil war in the US, since 6 out of the 7 states hardest hit by the HHS rationing are run by Republicans, and incumbent Donald Trump won all of them in the 2020 election. Wow. Okay, so let's also note that in the article, there were several key terms used that expose the ideology behind what is actually happening here. Words like equity and centralized. And what I'm getting in the context of what the article is saying and how it's being used, they are describing centrally planned economy. And if you're unaware of what a centrally planned economy is, it's at the center of a totalitarian communistic government. So if we look up the definition of a centrally planned economy, it is this. Centrally planned economy. What is a centrally planned economy? A centrally planned economy, also known as a command economy, is an economic system in which a central authority, such as a government, makes economic decisions regarding the manufacturing and the distribution of products. Centrally planned economies are different from market economies, in which such decisions are traditionally made by business and consumers. The production of goods and services in command economies is often done by self-owned enterprises, which are government-owned companies. In centrally planned economies, which are sometimes referred to as command economies, prices are controlled by bureaucrats. Key takeaways of this. In a centrally planned economy, major economic decisions are made by a central authority. Centrally planned economies stand in a contrast to market economies, where large numbers of individuals, consumers, and profit-seeking private firms operate most of all of the economy. Centrally planned economies have been criticized by many economists as suffering from various economic problems related to poor incentives, information constraints, and inefficiency. You don't say. Does any of this sound familiar? I don't know. I think we just kind of read about it right now. But yeah, so that's a centrally planned economy. But back to the debate between Just Some Guy and Nick Rekieta.
Now, I do agree that if they just came and took his shit because he was the only one with it, that would be wrong and hard to justify. But
the question is why it would be wrong and hard to justify to take his stuff just because he's the only one with it. Why do you agree on that principle? What is the difference? If you can force someone to sell at a specific price, why can't you force them to sell? Remember, if the principle that we are going with is the need of the potential buyer, there is no moral difference between forcing someone to sell at a quote unquote reasonable price and forcing them to sell the good that they don't need. Again, this is an inconsistency in this thinking.
that's not what happened. What happened is that he tried to exploit others to make a profit by hoarding things he knew they would need to buy. In that situation, I don't have a problem at all with the government taking those items, and only those items, and donating them to the people who need them. I phrased it that
Which the government did not actually do. The government donated them to themselves.
way because I don't trust the government with that much power either.
I want to marinate in the irony of that sentence following this first 5.5 minutes of video, so I will play it again.
At all with the government taking those items, and only those items, and donating them to the people who need them. I phrased it that way because I don't trust the government with that much power either. The role of the government is to serve the people, all of us. This kind of government...
That is not actually the role of the American government. The role of the government is to protect property rights.
So whether you agree with Nick Rekieta that the role of the government here is to protect property rights, or with Just Some Guy that the role of the government is to serve the people, neither is happening right now. And in fact, I would go as far as saying that this is the beginning stages of a totalitarian takeover of the people, including the free market. And in a totalitarian government, to me, is diabolical. It's immoral. It's unethical, and it's evil. It's straight up evil. The Colvin Brothers case showed us a basic premise where the right of an individual can be infringed upon by the government under the banner of protecting the people under the Emergency Health Act to seize these men's property at basically gunpoint. Now the federal government is doing essentially the same thing where they're buying and withholding distribution of a drug from thousands of people, a drug which, by the way, is amply available. So to them, you either get in line and get the jab or you will suffer. What is stopping them from coming to your house and taking your food storage away the next time there's a food shortage in your area or anything like that? Or like there's a state of emergency and they have to, come and confiscate people's foods for the good of the people, especially if you're unvaccinated. Now, I actually don't even think that matters anymore. Even if you're vaccinated, they'll just come take your stuff because, you're a good citizen and doing things for the good of the people and your allegiance to the party, as George Orwell says on the video, the highlighted video on my channel. Anyway, these are sure interesting times, and I just wanted to chime in with my thoughts on the Nick Rekieta and Just Some Guy debate about all of this. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please smash the like. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and share the video out there, and let's get more people involved in the conversation. I would love to know what you guys think, whether you agree or disagree with me. Please let me know in the comments down below. And thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Bye.